Hi, it's Maria from Still Dreaming Homestead. Glad to be back with you, and I'm glad that I get to do the story a little earlier today. So, we're continuing to read in our book, Little House on the Prairie by Laura Ingalls Wilder. We're already on chapter 21, which is Indian Jamboree. Let's find out what this is about. I'll show you the picture they have. Must be getting close to winter because the geese are flying south for the winter where it will be warmer. Winter ended at last. Oh, it's done, I guess. So the geese must be coming back. That's kind of fun. Hey, look who's up here with me. Hi, Gracie. Hi, baby. Winter ended at last, so those geese must be flying north again. There was a soft note in the sound of the wind, and the bitter cold was gone. One day, Pa said he'd seen a flock of wild geese flying north. It was time to take his furs, ouch, baby, to Independence. Ma said, "The Indians are so near." "They're perfectly friendly," said Pa. He often met Indians in the woods when he was hunting. There was nothing to fear from the Indians. "No," Ma said, but Laura knew that Ma was afraid of them. "You must go, Charles," she said. "We must have a plow and seeds, and you'll be back again soon." Before dawn, that's before the sun came up, the next morning, Pa hitched Pet and Patty to the wagon, loaded his furs onto it, and drove away. Laura and Mary counted the long, empty days. 1, 2, 3, 4, and still Pa had not come home. In the morning of the 5th day, they began to earnestly watch for him. It was a sunny day. There was still a little chill in the wind, but it smelled of spring. The vast blue sky resounded with the quacks of wild ducks and the honk, honk, honking of the wild geese. The long, black dotted lines of them were all flying north. Ouch. These cats have very sharp paws. Laura and Mary played outdoors in the wild, sweet weather. And poor Jack watched them and he sighed. He couldn't run and play anymore because he was chained. Laura and Mary tried to comfort him, but he didn't want petting. He wanted to be free again, as he used to be. Pa didn't come in that morning. He didn't come in that afternoon. Ma said it must have taken him a long time to trade his furs. That afternoon, Laura and Mary were playing hopscotch. They marked the lines with a stick in the muddy yard. Mary really didn't want to hop. She was almost 8 years old, and she didn't like to play hopscotch because she thought it wasn't ladylike. But Laura teased and coaxed, and she said if they stayed outdoors, they were sure to see Pa the minute he came up from the creek bottoms. So Mary was hopping. Suddenly she stopped on one foot and said, "What's that?" Laura had already heard the queer sound and she was listening to it. She said, "It's the Indians." Mary's other foot dropped and she stood frozen still. She was scared. Laura was not exactly scared, but the sound made her feel funny. It was the sound of quite a lot of Indians chopping with their voices. It was something like the sound of an axe chopping and something like a dog barking. And it was something like a song, but not like any song that Laura had ever heard before. It was a wild, fierce sound, but it didn't seem angry. Laura tried to hear it more clearly. She couldn't hear it very well because hills and trees and the wind were in the way, and Jack was savagely growling. Ma came outdoors and listened a minute. Then she told Mary and Laura to come into the house. Ma took Jack inside too and pulled in the latch string. They didn't play anymore. They watched at the window and listened to that sound. It was hard to hear in the house. Sometimes they couldn't hear it. Then they heard it again. It hadn't stopped. Ma and Laura did the chores earlier than usual. They locked Bunny, their horse, remember, and the cow and the calf in the stable, and took the milk to the house. Ma strained it and set it away. She drew a bucket of fresh water from the well, while Laura and Mary carried in the wood. All the time that sound went on. It was louder now and faster, made Laura's heart beat faster. They all went into the house and Ma barred the door. The latch string was already in. They wouldn't go out of the house till morning. The sun slowly sank all around the edge of the prairie. The sky flushed pink. Firelight flickered at the dusky house and Ma was getting supper. But Laura and Mary silently watched at the window. They saw the colors fade from everything. The land was shadowy. The sky was clear, pale gray. All that time the sound came from the creek bottoms, louder and louder and faster, and Laura's heart beat faster and louder. How she shouted when she heard the wagon! She ran to the door and jumped up and down, but she couldn't unbar it. Ma wouldn't let her go out. Ma went out to help Pa bring in the bundles. He came in with his arms full, and Laura and Mary clung to his sleeves and jumped on his feet. Pa laughed his jolly big laugh. Hey, don't upset me. That means knock me over. He laughed. What do you think I am, a tree to climb on? He dropped the bundles on the table. He hugged Laura with a big bear hug and tossed her up in the air and then hugged her again. Then he hugged Mary snugly in his other arm. Listen, Pa, Laura said. Listen to the Indians. Why are they making that funny noise? And this is what the girls looked like when they saw Pa. They were so happy. Oh, they're having some kind of jamboree, Pa said. I heard them when I crossed the creek bottoms. Then he went to unhitch the horses and bring in the rest of the bundles. He had got the plow. He left it in the stable. But he brought all the seeds into the house for safety. He had sugar, not any of the white sugar this time, but brown. White sugar cost too much. But he brought a little white flour. There were cornmeal and salt and coffee and all the seeds they needed. Pa even got seed potatoes. Laura wished that they might eat the potatoes, but they must save them to plant. Then Pa's face beamed and he opened a small paper sack. It was full of crackers. He set it on the table and he unwrapped and set a glass jar full of little green cucumber pickles. I thought we'd all have a treat, he said. Laura's mouth watered and Ma's eyes shone softly at Pa. He had remembered how she longed for pickles. When you say longed for something, it means you really want them. That wasn't all. He gave Ma a package and watched her unwrap it, and in it was enough pretty calico to make her a dress. Oh, Charles, you shouldn't have. It's too much, she said. But her face and Pa's face were two beams of joy. Now he hung up his cap and his plaid coat on their pegs. His eyes looked sideways at Laura and Mary. But that was all. He sat down and stretched out his legs to the fire. Mary sat down too and folded her hands in her lap. But Laura climbed into Pa's knee and beat him with her fists. Where is it? Where is it? Where is my present? She said, beating him. Pa laughed his big laugh like great bells ringing, and he said, Why, I do believe there's something in my blouse pocket. That's what they used to call a shirt, was a blouse. He took out the oddly shaped package and very, very slowly he opened it. You first, Mary, he said, because you are so patient." And he gave Mary a comb for her hair. "And here, Flutterbudget, this is for you," he said to Laura. The combs were exactly alike. They were made of black rubber and curved to fit over the top of a little girl's head. And over the top of the comb lay a flat piece of black rubber with curving slits in it. And in the very middle of it, a little 5-pointed star was cut out. A bright colored ribbon was drawn underneath, and the color showed through. The ribbon in Mary's comb was blue, and the ribbon in Laura's comb was red. Ma smoothed back their hair and slid the combs into it. And there in the golden hair, exactly over the middle of Mary's forehead, was a little blue star. I'm going to show you what that looked like. You see that? And in Laura's brown hair, over the middle of her forehead, was a little red star. That's what that looked like. I lost my place. Laura looked at Mary's star, and Mary looked at Laura's, and they laughed with joy. They had never seen anything so pretty. Ma said, "But Charles, you didn't get yourself a thing." "I got myself a plow," said Pa. "Warm weather will be here soon now, and I'll be plowing." That was the happiest supper they'd had for a long time. Pa was home safe again. The fried salt pork, was very good. After so many months of eating ducks and geese and turkey and venison. Venison is another name for deer meat. And nothing had ever tasted so good as those crackers and the little green sour pickles. Pa told them about all the seeds. He had got seeds of turnips, and carrots, and onions, and cabbage. He had got peas, and beans, and corn, and wheat, and potato seeds, and watermelon seeds. He said to Ma, "I tell you, Carolyn, when we begin getting crops off this rich land of ours, we'll be living like kings." They had almost forgotten the noise from the Indian camps. The window shutters were closed now, and the wind was moaning in the chimney and whining in the house. They were so used to the wind they did not hear it. But when the wind was silent, an instant, Laura could hear the wild, shrill, fast-beating sound from the Indian camps. Pa said something to Ma that made Laura sit very still and listen carefully. He said that folks in Independence said the government was going to put the white settlers out of Indian territory. That means make them move. He said the Indians had been complaining, and they had got an answer from Washington. "Oh, Charles, no," Ma said. "Not when we've done so much." Pa said he didn't believe it. He said, "They always let the settlers keep the land. They'll make the Indians move on again. Didn't I get the word straight from Washington that this country's going to be opened up for settlement any time now? I wish they'd settle it and stop talking about it," Ma said. After Laura was in bed, she lay awake a long time, and so did Mary. Pa and Ma sat at the firelight and candlelight reading. Pa had bought a newspaper from Kansas, and he read it to Ma. It proved that he was right. The government would not do anything to the white settlers. Whenever the sound of the wind died away, Laura could faintly hear the sound of that wild jamboree in the Indian camps, kind of like a party, I guess, sometimes even above the howling of the wind. She thought she still heard the fierce yells of jubilation. Faster and faster and faster, they made her heart beat. Hi-yi-yi-yi, hi-yi-yi-yi, hi-yi-yi-yi. That's what she thought it sounded like. That's the end of that chapter. Well, we'll be finding out whether that newspaper's right or not. They have done a lot of work there, you know. Well, it's Maria from Still Dreaming Homestead. I want to pray blessings on you and yours, in your house and out of your house, in the day and the night. Whatever you do, keep dreaming. Keep a story in your heart, too. All right, if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure and hit that subscribe button. And don't forget, if you hit the notification bell, you should get notified every time I put out a new video. And I hope you will enjoy them. Well, I'll be reading to you tomorrow. Good night.